The trade deadline is a final opportunity until the offseason for teams to upgrade their rosters and build for the future. Rarely does the NBA deadline bring as much drama as this year did, so let's take a look at some of the key trades that went down. In the first trade, the Suns received Torrey Craig while the Pacers received Jalen Smith and a future second-round pick. This was a sneaky good move for the Suns, along with trading for Aaron Holiday to provide more bench production for the best team in the NBA and my predicted champs. The Pacers also received a former lottery pick to help kickstart the rebuild. In the next trade, the Charlotte Hornets received Montrezl Harrell while the Washington Wizards received Ish Smith and Vernon Carey Jr. This was a great trade for the Hornets as they gave up virtually nothing for a big man who adds depth to a poor front court. In a trade that has no true effect on the current state of either team, the Thunder received KZ Opala and the Heat received a 2026 second-round pick. Although this doesn't affect the Heat right now, it does affect their flexibility in future trades. Long story short, the Heat previously owed a 2023 first-round pick to the Thunder with protections that went until 2026. This prevented Miami in adding unprotected first-round picks in any trade until 2028 since the NBA doesn't allow teams to be without consecutive future first-round picks. But since they agreed to change the protection of that pick to a 2025 pick, that will now turn into an unprotected 2026 if it's not conveyed to 2025. Overall, this was a low-key move by the Miami Heat that had a huge effect on what they can do in future deals. In a 4-team trade, the Bucks received Serge Ibaka and 2 future second-round picks. The Kings received Dante DiVincenzo, Trey Lyles, and Josh Jackson. The Clippers received Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye, and the Pistons received Marvin Bagley III. I think this was a beneficial trade for everyone involved, but especially the Bucks and Pistons. The Bucks received a great role player in Serge Ibaka by only moving a struggling player coming off an injury in Dante DiVincenzo and Rodney Hood. And the Pistons get a young player who still has a lot of potential and only needed an opportunity in my opinion. In the next deal, the Raptors received Thaddeus Young, Drew Eubanks, and a 2022 second-round pick in return for Goran Dragic, a 2022 first-round pick which is protected 1 through 14, or a 2023 first-round pick which is protected 1 through 13 that 2022 doesn't convey. I think it was a good deal for the Raptors as they get a quality big man all while trading someone who wasn't even with the team. The Spurs are negotiating a buyout with Dragic and he will get a lot of interest from contending teams like the Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, and others. The protected first-round pick going to San Antonio is also big for the Spurs because that pick likely won't fall from 1 through 14 since the Raptors are contending in the East. In the last minor deal, the Rockets received Dennis Schroeder, Enes Freedom, and Bruno Fernando while the Celtics bring back Daniel Tice. The Celtics move on from Dennis Schroeder, who will most likely not be with the team next year anyways, all while dumping salary with Freedom and Fernando and upgrading at the center position with Tice. To start the bigger trades in NBA, the Celtics received Derek White and traded away Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, a 2022 first-round pick, and Rice on a 2028 first-round pick swap. This was a great trade for both the Spurs and the Celtics. Many thought Boston gave up too much by adding a first-round pick in Romeo Langford, but this is an automatic upgrade for Richardson on both sides of the floor, a longer contract on a younger player, and Langford did not show a whole lot while he was on the floor. In the next big trade, the Wizards received Kristaps Porzingis and a future second-round pick when the Mavs received Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. I don't think this was as bad as a trade for the Mavs as people made it seem. It goes to show how much worse they value Porzingis, and they got back some value while also moving off of a terrible contract that didn't give them flexibility to build around Luka Doncic in the future. In the first of 2 big trades for the Blazers, they traded away Robert Covington and Norman Powell and got back Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a future second-round pick. This was one of the most underrated trades this year for the Clippers. LA has already been without their 2 stars, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. By acquiring Robert Covington and Norman Powell, they get 2 great role players who can lead the team into their playoff push while their stars are recovering from injury. But for Portland, I think this was a horrible trade. If we look back last year, the Trailblazers traded Gary Trent and a first-round pick to the Raptors for Norman Powell and have just traded him for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, and a rookie. So they basically traded a first and 2 quality players for 2 scrubs. It's not a good look for the organization. In Portland's second big trade, they traded CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell for Josh Hart, Thomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Didi Louzada, a 2022 protected first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks. The Blazers are finally in rebuild or retool mode as they called it by trading sidekick CJ McCollum. The Pelicans get a terrific score and built a new big 3 to stay competitive and maybe even make the playoffs in the West. Brandon Ingram is having the best season of his career, and by adding McCollum and hopefully a healthy Zion, they'll be able to keep up with some of the better teams in the NBA. Next, and probably my favorite trade of this deadline, the Cavs received Caris LeVert in a 2022 second-round pick, and the Pacers get Ricky Rubio, a 2022 first-round pick which is lottery protected, and 2 second-round picks. This was one of my favorite deals of the entire deadline as Cleveland got a stud in Caris LeVert. I almost predicted this exact trade in my previous video, so it was kind of cool to see that prediction come true. I now see the Cavs moving on from Colin Sexton, and they can get great value out of him since he's still a good young player. And the Pacers get another first rounder that they can use to start their rebuild. In one of the most surprising trades this year, the Pacers received Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson, and the Kings got Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a second-round pick. My first opinion on this trade was that the Kings got finessed by trading a young star in Tyrese Halliburton, but as time has gone on, my thoughts have changed. The Kings do get an all-star in Domantas Sabonis, and even though he probably has hit his full potential, he's still a great player. By doing this trade, the Kings have shown that they are all in on at least making a play-in tournament, and the Pacers can continue their rebuild with Halliburton all while staying competitive at the same time. In the last trade, and probably the biggest one out of the entire deadline, the Nets received Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, a 2022 first-round pick, and a 2027 protected first-round pick for the Sixers to receive James Harden and Paul Millsap. The biggest trade of the year saw James Harden get shipped out to Philly to team up with Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons finally getting what he wants by leaving Philly to go to the Nets. If I had to choose a winner in this trade, it would be the Brooklyn Nets. They added a great playmaker and defensive-minded forward to put around scorers Kevin Durant and Kyrie while getting 2 first-round picks at the same time. Also by getting Seth Curry and Andre Drummond while Joe Harris and Nick Claxton are battling injury is very underrated as well. But with the Sixers pairing Joel Embiid and James Harden, it instantly becomes the best duo in the league. I think both teams benefit from this trade, and it'll be very exciting to watch them battle in the playoffs if that opportunity comes about. I also have some of my biggest winners and losers of the NBA trade season. Ben Simmons and James Harden are both 2 of my biggest winners because they got what they wanted in the end. Simmons wanted out of Philly, and it was perfect that James Harden wanted out of Brooklyn as well. The trade just made sense for both parties, and each team benefited from the deal. The Celtics were also one of my winners. They got better by acquiring Derek White, who was young, on a long contract, and adds firepower to the best defense in the NBA, and got under the luxury tax by shipping out Schroeder, Dennis Freedom, Bobo, and others. They also brought back a fan favorite in Daniel Tice, who will be a good contributor off the bench and is a huge upgrade from their previous big man rotation. My biggest losers, however, were the Lakers and the Knicks. The Lakers absolutely had to make a change to their roster, but they did not have any assets to do so. It was reported that many deals fell through with the Lakers as they couldn't come to any agreements with any other teams. Their next first-round pick is in 2027, so their future at the moment is looking very bleak. Their next chance to improve the roster will be the buyout market, and players like Goran Dragic, Dennis Schroeder, DeAndre Bembry, Paul Millsap, and others may become available. The Knicks also were expected to make a move this deadline as they have been underwhelming this entire season. Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and Alec Burks were all reported to be available in trades, but they could not find any suitors. I don't think New York will turn their season around, and I believe many changes will happen in the offseason from the front office all the way down to the roster. And lastly, the biggest winner of this year's trade deadline is the NBA. They provided one of the best deadlines in recent years that was full of drama, excitement, and many big trades. With the season hitting its halfway mark, the league is just heating up and is looking to be a great finish to the regular season. Who do you think won this year's deadline? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see y'all next video. Peace.